Hello, brave, beautiful warrior soul friends. Hope you all are doing well. We got an excellent question on our YouTube channel, and we will eventually create a video and upload there, but I wanted to kind of hang out with you guys. I miss you guys. So the question was, how do you recover from trauma? Because the video is talking about how talk therapy should no longer, like, standardized talk therapy where you're just talking about the external explicits shouldn't be the standard approach for healing trauma. Like, it shouldn't even be offered. It legitimately should not even be offered. And so someone was asking, well, what do you recommend then? Hello, soul friends. Thank you for joining. I'm sending you all so much love and light. It feels good to be here. I miss you guys. And so I just wanted to kind of talk through a few of the things I've learned and open the floor for any questions you guys may have. I love interacting with you all, and I love being able to share the everyday healing journey of life. Because it can get lonely, it can get tough, and it's important to keep the eye on the prize of just loving who we are and creating space for all that we are. Because trauma and dissociation can really take away the ability to naturally do that. Like, there could be general life stuff that makes it challenging, but like trauma and dissociation just like steal that thunder. So what does it take to heal from trauma? And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts too. At the core of it, well, there's a lot of different components, but at the core of it, it's being able to return to your sense of self in the moment without being hindered by the messages from the traumas, basically, is kind of like how I would summarize it. And so the first step is mindfulness, and practicing mindfulness, practicing presence, just practicing the ability to be right here, right now. Traumatic stress and dissociation reduce that innate ability of the mind to just be right here. And so practicing presence, practicing mindfulness is a really big first step of it. Thanks for all the hearts, though. That always lifts our hearts to see, especially our littles, of course. And so practicing mindfulness is really the first step to healing. And then from there, you kind of practice dual awareness. How much can you notice just being right here, right now, and notice another aspect of life experience also? How much can you stay present? Yeah, all the hearts and stuff. I love you guys too. How much can we notice our external life and our internal life at the same time? Because it can be very easy to only be in one of the experiences, and that's something that I battle with every single day of my freaking life. And so we're just growing our cognitive capacity of consciousness to be present, and then practice the ability to observe two different sensations simultaneously without separating from them. So to notice my feet on the ground and to notice the anxiety I'm feeling inside, for example. And then once there's just kind of a baseline ability of presence through mindfulness and a baseline ability of increasing the window of tolerance through dual awareness, then the real deep healing can gradually begin. And the deep healing is about healing subconscious parts and unconscious states. So healing subconscious parts requires something that uses a methodology of parts. Right now there's internal family systems is one of the methods, and Janina Fisher's multi-parts approach is a beautiful method. And I am creating my own method of what has helped me heal. Those were kind of starter platforms, but I've created a brand new way of exploring consciousness from the inside out, a whole new way of perceiving parts, a whole new way of understanding the subconscious. And so using that kind of stuff, it helps heal. So it's all about subconscious parts then. Hello, soul friend, welcome. Yes, I'm learning to be an observer. I'm so proud of you. It's tough, but we really get to grow our superpowers. So once there's the mindfulness for presence, dual awareness to grow window of tolerance, then you explore healing subconscious parts. And that can be through a talk therapy method, but you're not talking about the externals. You're talking about the internals. You're talking about implicit sensation and using subconscious language. Janina Fisher is really excellent at subconscious language. She doesn't describe it as such, but that's really what she talks about in her book. Just describing it in other ways, but it's all about subconscious language, how to be in, finding that attunement with your own inner being, how to grow that. And it was cool because when I met her in person, she even explained, like, she really tried to write it in a way that other people could grasp. Like, it was very clearly written by and for therapists, like it says that and everything, but when I met her in person, she was like, I was really hoping that other people could get something from it too. And I was like, I did. I need to read that. Yes, it's so good. It's so good. I really do recommend it. And even if you can only read bits and pieces at a time, like what we did, because reading with dissociation is so challenging, is we would kind of just browse the book, we'd kind of scroll through it and just find a page that interested us. Because if we can be interested in what we're reading, we can break through the dissociation a little bit, because we're using that curiosity and calm and all the different aspects of personal power and self-leadership. And so you don't ever have to read a book chronologically, just because that's the normal thing to do. And you don't ever have to read it all at once. Like if you read one paragraph a day, you're still reading more than you would have. You know what I mean? Like I always had this perception of, well, I need to read a whole chapter if I'm gonna bother sitting down, but if you can't read a whole chapter, you can still sit down. You know what I mean? Like just kind of creating space and allowing it to just all be allowed. Like it really is all allowed. And so we also actually have a few tips for reading with dissociation on our YouTube, so feel free to check that out. Janina's book is called Healing the Fragmented Selves of Trauma Survivors, Overcoming Internal Self-Alienation. My word was mixing up the brain. My brain was mixing up the words. You can tell we've been a little dissociated today. Oh my God, I have trouble reading due to dissociation. I thought it was just me. You are not alone. You are not alone. Like, if I had the energy, I would shout it from the rooftop straight up. You're not alone. Reading is so hard. We literally, about a year and a half ago, it was to the point where I would sit down for hours and maybe read like a sentence and a half. Like, it's not just you. But there are ways to work through it, so don't give up on yourself. But it's important to know, too, that reading isn't the challenge there. The brain's just having a hard time being present. And so, like, even tonight, I was like, I really just want to learn stuff. So I grabbed my books, and I looked at it, and I realized that I was really dissociated, and I didn't need to read. A part of me wanted to read because I felt like maybe if I could learn, I'd be worth something. And so then I needed to address that part of me that was fragmented from our other aspects of self, knowing that we're worthy regardless of what we do, and to bring all the parts into an experience of presence, just in the moment. And I realized that was more important than reading, so we put our books away. So yeah, it's really all allowed. Dissociation happens in the brain body. It's not something that's happening in your mind. Like your mind is your mind is just the awareness of experiences happening through your neurophysiology and human spirit. Your mind is a product of something. It's not its own separate thing. Your mind is coming from somewhere, and it has to do with your brain-body system. So if your mind is having difficulties, it's really just clues about this miraculous brain-body thing that you live in, producing experiences of consciousness. It makes me sad because I love reading, but it's been so hard. I so understand. Oh gosh, there's years where we were reading books and books and books on books and books and books and books on books. Like, reading was my life. Like, I'm an English major. Words and the love of words has always been, like words has always been my first love. Like, writing and reading was my first language, not speaking. I kind of always joke about that. But follow the passion, and honestly, start small. I would really encourage you to get like a children's picture book from the library. and just give yourself space to enjoy the concept of reading again without hurting yourself. You know, like if our brain's having a hard time reading, we're allowed to like take a step back and just love our parts of consciousness. Fun fact, 80% of decision making and 95% of our experiences of consciousness happen beyond our awareness. And deep within our awareness is our brainstem and the aspects surrounding that portion of the brain. And that's the part of us that develops when we're a child. Our inner child lives in our brainstem, affects 80% of our decision making, and 95% of our experiences of consciousness beyond all awareness. When we heal our inner child or inner children, we heal ourselves. So I would really just encourage you to follow the passion of reading without following the way it should be, you know, like I would often like look at kids' books and I'm like, I'm an adult, like that's so like I'm so above that. But really I was just judging myself, you know, like I was really just judging myself, and we don't need to judge ourselves. Judgments come from our left brain hemisphere, and that's just the aspects of our consciousness trying to create an explanation for things so that we can understand things. Because without understanding, you know, how do we perceive ourselves? How do we perceive the world around us? Like, you know, to some degree, we need a sense of understanding to move through life. But our left brain takes it to a whole nother level and makes judgments on everything. And we really don't need to agree with those. We can just be like, yo, left brain, thanks for helping me like understand this, but I don't need this judgment right now. Like, you're allowed to like stand down. Like, sorry, the phone's shaking. I'm a little cold. Yeah, whoa, yeah, I love these whoas and wows. Yeah, that's what I said too, like, what? Straight up, like, what is even happening? You know, like, we perceive ourselves as just being this person, here and now, right? But it's all coming from somewhere. And the human mind is complex. Like, I mean, we've traveled to other planets, but we don't understand our own mind. Like that just, like, blows my mind, you know, like, 2 other planets, right? But, like, humans are brilliant, but self-understanding is not something we've ever really mastered. And I honestly find that so amusing now that I've, like, explored it more. Human consciousness is something that we actually can understand. We can't ever, like, confine it or define it or, like, simplify it, but we can understand aspects of it, you know? Yeah, whoa, that is a good idea. Thanks, Haley. Oh my God, wow, I didn't know I had the good ideas. Thank you, guys. I'm so glad that you vibe with that. Yeah, tapping into that inner child is really what life's about. The root of our self-perceptions comes from our inner child. And our inner child is the part of us who embodies love, experiences love. And so when we give ourselves love, we're literally feeding our inner child energy that can help rewire our brain and transform our experiences of consciousness. That makes sense. I've tried forcing it, but then I get so frustrated with myself. Like, what is wrong with me? I so know that feeling. And what's happening there is the left brain is just growing stronger in its judgments because it says, we need to do this thing and I can't force it. And I'm using all my tools. So I'm going to use my tools to explain what's happening. And it's obviously because we just suck at everything. So we kind of just got to like disarm the left brain parts and feed other parts of ourselves for a while. Our right brain is the part that likes sensations and feelings and pictures and images. And so when we can look at like children's books, we're creating space for the passion of reading, but feeding the opposite part of our brain hemispheres. And that can help cause a shift in the neural activity of things, like literally brain neural activity. I love throwing science in with all this. Who would have thought I'd be a scientist? Exactly, trying to be more silly and accept it. Yeah, because silliness taps into the right brain hemisphere too. You got it, soul friend. You're onto it. Yeah, silliness taps into the right brain hemisphere and kind of deactivates the frustration from the left. And these are all connected with subconscious parts. Whoa, wow. We love you so much. Yeah. So, yeah, cool. I'm glad I could share that with you guys. These are the kinds of insights that I'm hoping someday are really the baseline for mental health care. Because our experiences of consciousness come from the inside out. Looking at the behaviors doesn't do anything to change the behaviors, It's all just clues. Like depression, anxiety, dissociation, difficulty reading, all of these things are just clues. You're the greatest scientist to exist. That's protectors feel so validated. They're the scientists. Science is way over my head. Thank you so much for being present here, soul friend. I appreciate you so much. Yeah, cosmic deviant. I like that. So much love for you guys. I feel lighter now that I was able to share some of our message with the world. It's been a rough day of really intense disconnection. Dr. Windsor. Oh golly. It's not me. Gosh, I love that. I'm so grateful for all of you. Oh, fans. Oh man, I didn't even know that this was a real thing. I thought I was just talking to a box in my hand. Dissociation be like, right? Yeah, so a couple things then to share. To just kind of conclude the oh golly, it is you. Just to conclude the original topic, healing from trauma. Establishing presence in the conscious awareness, healing subconscious parts, and then healing unconscious states. So we talked about the first ones a little bit, I could talk for hours, but we just wanted to give a little summary, right? So healing unconscious states is about releasing the traumatic stress from the nervous system and recalibrating the nervous system for regulation. And so things like trauma release exercises, yoga, honestly, even certain kinds of massage work, somatic experiencing, I think actually touches on that. So there's a few different options to just kind of focus on the unconscious states, healing from trauma. I can listen for hours. Oh, that's so surreal to hear. It's literally just like 20 minutes ago or an hour ago, like our perception was in a place of like, no one cares about hearing our truth. There's no point in speaking. And I could tell that it wasn't, like I could tell that it was a clue of consciousness, like of a part wanting to speak our truth and wanting to be heard. And so that's why we came on here. And we were just like, I don't know what's going to happen, and all the fears were like, what if no one's there? What if no one cares? What if we don't have anything to say? But I was like, those are just sensations and they don't get to make decisions for us anymore. I'll be sharing a blog later. We wrote it. We were just having technical difficulties posting it. But we talk about how we lost sight of our power today and it felt really icky. But the feelings of ickiness was just clues of my consciousness being like, devastated that we didn't have power, and then I kind of walk through the attributes of reclaiming power and stuff. Gosh, I love you guys. You're all changing lives. I don't get that because I don't even feel like I exist, but I'm glad to hear it. I genuinely don't even feel like I exist, but I'm really glad to know that the existence is for something. I love you guys. And then, so we talked briefly about healing from trauma. And so I want to talk briefly about healing and recovery and then dissociation. And I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions. I would love for this to be something you can walk away with a new nugget of knowledge. Like our protectors are very agenda oriented, like you need to leave here with like a piece of truth to take into your life and just transform everything, and we know that that's not always the way life goes, right? But if there is something you can walk away with, that would just mean the world to us. So do feel free to ask questions and just kind of see how you can make this something that you use for you tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to hear the knowledge, but integrating it into our experience takes a lot more stuff, a lot more components of consciousness, and a few extra strides that don't really come naturally. So do feel free to ask questions about any of what we're talking about. Man, that's so great. Protectors equal professors. It's true. we actually could always identify protectors, because when we would sense them talking, it kind of felt like we were preparing to give a speech on a stage. Because we didn't have a sense of self. It was only business oriented, because left brain isolation. Did you integrate recently? That is such a beautiful question. And there is no direct answer, so we'll just allow that to open up a fun little discussion. What is integration? That's been like a super hot topic for years. Integration is explained best by Daniel Siegel. Anyone else's definition of integration really doesn't touch on the truth of consciousness or neurobiology. From my experience, of course, there could be things out there I just haven't explored. But Daniel Siegel is really the only person I found that talks about integration in a truth-filled way. Otherwise, it's often kind of just thrown around conceptually without really an understanding of what it means. Yeah, Daniel Siegel. Highly recommend his books, his works, various things. You can read some of his stuff online, but if you can get one of his books, that's even better. He's written quite a few. And they all look so good. I had a hard time choosing one to start with. I'm like, can I just buy them all? I'm like, no, then you'd be overwhelmed and sad because you can't read them all simultaneously. Start with one. So integration really means growing energetic pathways in the brain-body system so that different components of all of these things can communicate with one another. Specifically, the left and right brain hemispheres, and the forebrain and the hindbrain. And so our left brain is very logical and linear and, and has access to the explicit language and interprets things. And the right brain is very feelings and sensational and images and raw data and kind of takes in the whole experience without interpreting it. And then our front brain is that conscious capacity for, making plans and understanding that a future exists and observing and consciously responding. And then like our hindbrain is like connecting with our visceral sensations, so like a gut feeling or like body sensations and like feeling a need for hunger, like things like that. And the hindbrain is much more connected with the right brain, and the forebrain, I say that right? Yeah, the forebrain is much more connected with the left brain. And so what happens? Yeah, future exists. Whoa, dude, I feel that. I feel that so hard. This whole day we were just like, nothing actually exists. Space and time are illusions. Nothing is real. Tomorrow is not a thing that ever comes. Like, it was pretty gnarly. And so integration really means growing neural neural networks throughout the brain, so that the aspects of the brain can communicate and the aspects of the brain and body can communicate. And it reconnects regions of the brain within itself, it reconnects the mind and the body, and it reconnects the brain and the body. And so it's really a process of reconnection for optimal communication. And integration doesn't necessarily mean that parts disappear. It really just means that parts will be able to experience one another with less separation, potentially have the ability for communication and collaboration, and feel less isolated through the life experience. And so when we talk about integration, it's not a matter of integrating parts. Parts are energetic communicators. They're kind of these abstract aspects that connect aspects of mind and body, or brain and body. The conscious mind with the unconscious body. And so integration is a process, not an end result. I like that phrasing. Yeah. And so integration for us, yes, we are always in a process of integrating. no, we never magically achieve a point of integration. There has been one exception, though. But even this was gradual with many breakthroughs and was not something we directly achieved. It was this gradual thing where there was a result of the process of integrating, and then the integrating kept continuing after this. But the one big milestone was Bambi no longer existing as her own separate person. And that was kind of the concept of integration that I thought that I considered back then. The way therapists kind of talk about it, from my experience anyway, is you integrate parts so that they're not their own separate persons. And so the one experience of that was Bambi, but that was a process of a year and a half of working with parts, and the working with parts continued, you know what I mean? And that was just a beautiful process, because we really learned about the complexities of the neurophysiological applications of consciousness. That's a whole profound other topic. I don't even know how. We'll dive into that someday. But yeah, so we are always integrating, but we are never fully integrated. It's a continual process of encouraging the brain to reconnect with itself and growing neural networks that have never existed. I would love for there to be a day where I naturally recognize myself in the mirror, just because that's the way my brain works. Not because I've done crap loads of hours of work to get there every day, infinitely, unendingly. We take one day off our mirror meditations and there's no recognition when we look in the mirror. And so integration is growing the networks in the brain that help connect these things. And Danielle Siegel is great about giving real life examples to kind of make sense of this. And he writes parenting books. And so I'm kind of using the parenting books on myself, and just kind of growing my awareness on these topics and everything, of course. And so when we're drowning in sensations, it's a very isolated experience. Our whole brain is not engaged in the experience, only a part of it is. And that's why it can feel so overwhelming and scaring and disorienting and stuff. And so it's really about finding the creative ways to connect the parts of our brain. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. But through the integration process, my parts learn to be connected with other aspects of self and not just be a traumatic response, or not just be a helpless child, or not just be a protector with no feeling. We kind of just grow the ability through our consciousness to have a more, I don't want to say well-rounded experience, but a more balanced experience, there's more continuity within the experience. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions about that. I know that's a lot. But yeah, I know parts are was that clear? Did we answer it? What was the other thing I was going to talk about? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, they replied. We love that. Thanks, friends. Yeah. I'm guessing we're dissociating a bit because we brought up a topic of memories that we haven't integrated. They're isolated memories that we don't all have access to. So when we go there, we drift. I think that's what's happening. What did I say I was going to talk about, though? Healing. What does healing mean? Someone asked if you can truly recover from trauma, or if you can fully heal. And so this is a topic we've been really exploring quite a bit. What does it actually mean? Some people define recovery as the traumatic stress no longer impacts your life. And I would agree with that in a physical way. Your ability to move through life is no longer dictated or dominantly influenced by traumatic responses. But here's the thing with trauma, and pardon my language, but it fucks you up. It fucks you up good. And so recovering doesn't mean that we have to go to some alternate illusion of normalcy. This is interesting because I heard opposing answers. Yeah, there's so many perspectives. It's like, are you talking about the topic of healing or integration? There's so many different perspectives on all of it. Like, a part of me even feels afraid to speak our perspectives because, like, what if we're wrong? But all the perspectives are allowed, and honestly, it's okay if you don't agree with something we say. It's really about learning about the potential perspectives and then holding on to what resonates with you. You know, if it doesn't feel right, like if you feel something in your gut disagreeing, you know, like, you're allowed to listen to yourself over, like, my words, you know what I mean? We're all allowed to have our own perspectives of truths, of whether healing is truly possible. Okay, perfect. Thanks for the clarification. Whether healing is truly totally. So and I'm so glad that you guys are in this convo with me. It always feels so good to talk when there's, like, actual humans here. Like, when we record videos, we don't get that interaction, and it just, like, perpetuates the dissociation. Like, we're speaking and we're being heard in some alternate dimension of time and space. It took me a while to realize why YouTube was stressful. It's because it perpetuates the dissociation. Just like, oh, sorry, kitty, I didn't know you were there. Yeah, like, I'm speaking over here and someone's hearing me way over there. It's exactly how dissociation feels. Some people have said you never really heal, just learn to cope more. But others have said, yes, you can truly heal. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think? What's your perspective? And perspectives are allowed to change. The perspective you have now doesn't have to be the perspective you have a year from now or the perspective you have a year ago, you know? Our perspectives are allowed to be ever evolving. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. My general perspective is, yes, healing is always possible, but it depends on how you define healing. If healing looks like being who you would have been if the trauma had never happened, no. Because that experience is a part of the miraculous unfolding storybook of your life. And the traumatic event does not need to be the thing that is forever remembered. But the courage that you had, the courage that we have to survive through it and then somehow create a space for ourselves in the world despite all sensations, as just one example. You know, like, I know I'm dissociating a bit because these are some perspectives of our protectors, and we're still learning to have full consciousness with them all. Healing doesn't mean that you're going to be the same person you would have been if the trauma had never happened. From that perspective, no, healing's not possible. You don't get to go back. We don't get to change what's happened in the past. But here's the thing, and this is really important. Memories stay alive inside of us. The traumatic event, external, explicit, is done. But the implicit, internal story of that experience is alive inside of our brain and our body. And when I say alive, I mean it's active. It's got its own living vibration. It's got its own heartbeat from one perspective, because our neural pathways are all these little cells. They're vibrating inside of us. They're shaking. They're doing their dance of life. These memories are alive inside of us. And the beautiful part about memories is that they can be rewritten. We can literally go back to these experiences, and it's not an immediate thing, and it's not an easy thing. And I'm saying it's a possible thing that even we've achieved without a therapist or anything. So I know it's possible. But you can go back. We can go back to these stories and actually change the way it's written. Because memories are comprised of a bunch of sensations that are processed in a particular manner, causing a particular experience when they are recalled. And if we rewrite the memories, we have power within them. I'd like to share an example, but I don't want to trigger anybody. So let me know if I should share an example about a traumatic event perspective, or if I should just keep with the abstract concepts. I don't want to trigger anybody. I love you guys for being in this conversation with me. But shoot me a comment while I read your amazing comments. I'm still really early. My vision. I'm still really early on recovering lost memories, but I have to believe healing is possible. Recovery is definitely possible. I'm so proud of you, soul friend. I'm torn. Sometimes my hope is high and I believe we can heal, but other times I wonder. But how you define healing is a very good point. Awesome. I totally resonate with that. And honestly, we're allowed to go through those ups and downs. Healing is always gradual and never linear. That's been one of my biggest lessons. Some days I still feel like healing is never going to happen. And then I realize it already is happening. And that's just a message of my mind. Wow, this has been happening a lot in my dreams recently. Yeah, like memories coming up and stuff, you mean? Question, how can you tell the difference between a false intrusive image and a flashback? I'm really struggling and accepting that my body memories and images are real. I totally get that. I'm okay with it. I'm good with sharing the example. Awesome. Did it. Okay, thank you guys so much. And if it's ever too much, you can always click out and then hop back in. Like, I never want to trigger you guys. But it's important to talk about this stuff. Like, there is a fine balance between not triggering, but giving voice to these things, So, long story short, I thought my childhood was pretty normal. But then there was all these weird things happening. And the perspective that was offered when I was in high school was that, it was through a religious lens that I had somehow let in, or that part of me had somehow let in the devil, and that this was like a demon, and we were being oppressed by evil because we let evil into our lives, and it was all our own fault. And so we went 10 years suffering through what we now understand is very severe dissociative episodes, intensive experiences of traumatic stress, insomnia, night terrors so much that I woke up with like gashes on my face, and time loss and amnesia and flashbacks of just generic terrifying sensations without specifics, and depression and psychotic type symptoms, and hearing voices and anxiety, and we were self-harming and self-medicating. Like, there's all kinds of stuff going on. But my perspective was that I had no reason to be going through that, and that I must have somehow caused it. And so that was a perspective for like 10 years. And then, we went through our adulthood still struggling, but like, okay, this is, it's freezing. Oh no. Let's see if we can get closer. My energy be too intense. Let's see if we can get closer to our internet modem. Let me know if it's any better. It should be reaching out here, okay? And so feel free to let me know if you guys can see me any better. Well, I mean, it's a little dark, but like, if you can catch the audio, I guess that's the important part. Is that any better or is it worse? You tell me, friend. You tell me. Oh no. You tell me, is this better or worse? Maybe I could maybe go inside. Shh. There's still parts of me that feel like we're not allowed to talk about this stuff inside the house, and so it's hard to find my voice when I'm around my family. But I know that's just my consciousness working through its stuff. Okay, awesome. I'm glad it's better. Thank you guys for letting me know.
I was gonna take my shoes off real quick, okay, friends?
And then we're gonna dive deep into some stuff. I know, we used to live in this room, but we don't actually have memory of that. Even though it's just a few months ago. Most of last year. So there was this awareness of the aspects of the experience, but we didn't understand why. And so, so it started at age 10. We explained some of what happened in high school. And then college, we finally got a bipolar and PTSD diagnosis when we were 21 and experiencing homelessness and disability. And we were like, finally, like the truth, like it's something valid, it's something real, there's treatment available, like finally we have an explanation and we have hope. 3.5 years later, I had seen over 100 doctors, tried every medicine in the book, new and old, been through all of the individual therapies, group therapies, DBT, CBT, EMDR, all the things. And I was worse than ever. Like, my health was so declined. I truly did not think I was capable of continuing with life. And so then we were diagnosed with DID. And I'm just like, how do I accept this when I don't think that there was any trauma that happened when I was a kid? And so it was hard to even acknowledge it, but every time we would acknowledge it, we're like, wait, so something else happened that we don't even know about? And then I'm like, well, what does it mean to live with multiple, like, persons? Like, how can I be, like, aren't we all just one person? Like, there was so much confusion and so much disorientation and so much anxiety and just judgment and fear, so much fear. And this was in 2017. So this is just 2.5 years ago. That's surreal to say. And so in that process, we started to dive deep into our healing. We were able to uncover all of the body memories that had originally been causing the traumatic experiences when we were a kid and in high school and perpetuating into college. And we were actually able to uncover the memories of, here's the triggering part, okay? So, just trigger warning. We were able to uncover the memories of being molested at 4 years old. And our body re-experienced the exact sensations as if it was happening again and again and again. And we went through this every day for many, many, many months in order to bring the unconscious into consciousness so it could be released and healed. And it was very physically painful. It was mentally terrifying. And at the end of the day, it would be really easy to allow for the story to be automatic. And to just say, I was a victim, and I had my life stolen from me, and there was something bad that happened, and no one bothered to even know that it had happened, and then it disrupted my life for 20 fucking years, and it rewired my whole brain body, and now I don't have a sense of self, I don't have a sense of time, I feel like my life has been taken from me, I feel like my body was never mine to begin with. It'd be really easy. It'd be really easy to go into the stories. But we have been working to rewire those stories and rewire the associated memories. And the truth is that we are a warrior. We have always been courageous. We have always had power. And the truth is that my story is mine, and no one gets to take that away from me. No one gets to take away my power or my story or my voice. No one and no thing. And the best way that I can take vengeance for the atrocity that happened is to transform the storybook of my life into something so fucking beautiful, it shakes the world. It shakes the goddamn world. The things that have happened to us do not define us. And we do have power in our response. And when we can transform the perceptions, we open doors that were just brick walls before. Like, we don't just open a door that was locked. We grow brand new doors through brick walls, and we open them. And the things that are possible to be experienced and achieved in this life, they grow. I was at a conference last week, and at the closing ceremony, I shared. We were all sitting in a circle, and it was a room filled with hundreds of people. And I wasn't planning to speak. Going and sitting in a circle where I'd been dissociated for the last several days of conferences, and I was exhausted, and I'd been struggling with suicidal ideation that whole day. I just wanted to go home and give up. But I went in the center of that circle and I shared, sobbing, of course, just sobbing my guts out in front of hundreds of people speaking in a microphone. Sobbing my guts out. I said, I have just been cracked open. And I talked about how it's a new moon and it was a time for shedding, and a big part of our humanity is our feelings and our sensations and our expression of these sensations and feelings. And so even pain can be purposeful, and even pain can be beautiful. And when we let go of the automatic stories, we have power to write our own. And we really are allowed to write our own. The automatic story, it's easy to fall into one of self-victimization. It's easy to let the pen just do its thing across the pages of our life. But when we grab that pen and we decide that we have a choice in who we are, we shake the whole planet and we don't even know it. I just want to peek y'all's comments. Part of me's been so curious. I wasn't able to go through that judgment phase because of you. Oh, I realized the truth instead of resorting to fear. Oh, you're amazing, and I feel so blessed to have helped. Oh, that's amazing. Oof, I needed to hear this from you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Oof, I feel all of those things. Yeah, it's intense. Trauma really changes things. It changes the game of who we feel like we are and who we feel like we can be. But that's only one part of the story. The other part is that you are a beautiful, miraculous being of love and light. You have light through your consciousness, able to shed light on new truths, able to bring things into awareness that maybe there wasn't awareness on before. You are love at the core of your being. Your entire consciousness was developed, neurophysiologically developed through experiences of love. You are literally love at the core of your consciousness. And you are miracles. The ability to feel sensation, the ability to speak, the ability to see, the ability to hold my hand here, holding a phone up in a dimension of time and space, the ability to create a conceptual thought from a place of feeling and then to create words from it and then to somehow have that translated into a vibration of my voice that expels through my mouth. Like, these are all miracles. And we're allowed to celebrate the love, light, and miracles that we are. We're allowed to change the story. I feel this so much, it hurts my heart. I'm glad we can connect, because it's important to create space to feel the pain. You can't heal something until you allow yourself to feel it. And when we create space to feel all the things, we grow our heart space. And our heart space is actually the truth of our identity. The energy that we have within us, the energetic potentials, the ability to connect with ourselves and connect with the world, our heart space is our identity. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. We really do get to change the story. And we never know the expanse of who we are, but that's because our consciousness can only grasp 5% of what's happening in our consciousness at any given moment. And what's happening in our consciousness is still not the truth of who we are. We are much more expansive than that. We are dynamic, complex, miraculous creatures. And it's when we focus on the stories, focus on the experience and what the experience automatically means to us, that we lose sight of all the potentials. And maybe the stories of what's happened to me from 20 years of traumas has nothing to do with the traumas, and has everything to do with my ability to help bring healing into the world. You know, if I never had to heal from stuff, I wouldn't have had very much healing to bring in. You know, like when I was finding insight from people, it wasn't the people who always had life super easy and everything was a walk in the park and they never had to figure stuff out. It was the people who went through shit. And they were forced into these spaces of having to heal, and through that they brought this new knowledge into the world. They brought this new energy of truth and potentials. And that planted a seed that grew all across the globe, and they didn't even know it. You know, like, the stories that our mind knows, it's not the whole truth. And so we can observe them, we can create space for presence, but we don't have to agree with them. We can just acknowledge, yeah, sure, that's one perspective. What about this other one? And we're allowed to browse perspectives until we find one that feels good. And even then, we don't have to latch onto a singular one. You know, maybe one day I'm a neuroscientist, and one day I'm an author, and one day I'm just a girl at the grocery store. You know, like, we're these very dynamic, complex creatures, and we don't need to limit or reduce ourselves just so we can grasp ourselves in any one single moment. You know, the mind likes to have a comprehension on things, but if we can fully understand something, it reduces its infinite beauty. And we are infinite beauty. That is innately what we are. You are infinite beauty. That is what you already are. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to prove anything. Maybe you need to do a little uncovering so you can see it better. But you are already infinite miracles. You are already infinite beauty. You are already infinite love and light. That's your natural state of being. And so this whole discussion started with the question of, is healing possible? Yes, always. But maybe we redefine what it looks like. I thought that healing would mean that I no longer dissociate. But I've kind of let go of that narrative, or I'm in the process of it. Maybe healing looks like being able to thrive even through daily dissociation. Maybe healing looks like embracing everything that I am, even if I don't remember who I am. Maybe healing looks like, something different than I perceived it was supposed to be. And yeah, ideally, we release all the traumatic stress and all the traumatic stories, but that takes time. And maybe we're allowed to experience a healing right here and right now just by loving ourselves. Maybe that's allowed to triumph everything else. Like, maybe we really get to create space for all that we are. And this is part of what we're going through. All we are is here, and all we are is going through this thing. So maybe we create space for the experience, and we create space for all that we are. Maybe we're allowed to be infinite love, light, miracles, and beauty while experiencing I know that hit something in your feels, huh? Maybe we're allowed to be infinite love, light, miracles, and beauty while experiencing dissociation, while experiencing traumatic stress. Maybe we don't have to be defined by our experience, yet we're allowed to be present with it. And maybe that's where the healing happens, you know? Love you so much. This is inspiring. Thank you so much. I feel so blessed just to be here. Thank you for witnessing us and sharing the journey. We only don't know who we are because it's hard to grasp infinity. Exactly. Very well said. Quotable quotes. We only don't know who we are because it's hard to grasp infinity. Amen. Maybe we redefine what it looks like. Yes, yes. And healing's allowed to look different for everyone. And it's good to have goals. But my theme right now is being healed while healing. Because when we say, I need healing, that implies that we're broken and we're not allowed to be who we are. And that's simply not true. You're not broken for having a unique experience of consciousness. You're not broken for having a brain that separates from itself sometimes. You're not broken for having traumatic stress inside of your body. You're not broken for having separate aspects of consciousness that experience life differently and maybe separately from one another. You're not broken for experiencing dissociation. You're not broken. That's simply not true. But healing isn't about changing who we are. It's about becoming more of who we are. We are love, light, and miracles. And so healing is a process of uncovering that truth, letting go of the things that block us from that truth. But in that process, we're allowed to also be healed. We already are healed. We already are love, light, and miracles. We are allowed to be exactly who we are, as we are, where we are. We are allowed to let go of the judgment. We are allowed to have unconditional presence with whatever we go through, even if it sucks and doesn't feel good and isn't ideal or whatever from, like some alternate perspective. We're allowed to be healed while healing. There's nothing broken about us. There's nothing wrong with us. Yet there's potential for growth and expansion and recovering more aspects of our miraculous authentic self so that we can be more of who we already are. Being healed while healing wise as fuck. I love you so much. It means so much that this can be a concept that can be shared. We thought it was just for us, but that was only one perspective, right? Infinite perspectives. It's for everyone. Every truth starts with us, but then it can grow and we can just plant seeds and the whole world can be healed while healing. How beautiful would that be? An entire planet being healed while healing. Just wallowing in the enoughness that is and the beauty that is while expanding to new potentials. Can you imagine the energy of that planet? Warms my heart just to think about. We're allowed to be healed while healing. And there's nothing wrong with us. Our consciousness is miraculous. And just because we experience life uniquely doesn't mean that's a wrong way to experience life. Everyone's experiencing life uniquely. Been on here forever. Instagram's gonna kick me off. I think I'll come back though. Let me end this video and see if I can come back. I'll see you in the next live. Flourishing from all those planted seeds. Preach, sister. I'll see y'all in a sec. Join our next thingy.